Welcome, bienvenidos. You are so brave. That is your characteristic. So I developed this podcast for you, Coaching the Brave podcast with Giovanna Chase, where we talk about all things positive and the power of coaching in the military community. Enjoy. From January 13th to February 17th, this series will take about 6 weeks. I'll be sharing with you what coaching is and what it isn't, the core concepts of coaching, and provide some personal experiences along the way. This series is for you if you enjoy learning new things overall, if you may be interested in a coaching career in the future or currently, and if you're genuinely curious about behavior change and positive psychology in your life and how you can change some aspects. Thank you so much. Enjoy. Hola, hola, hola. Hello, hello, hello. We are here for the last week in this series. Can you believe it's been 6 weeks already? We have learned so much about coaching, possibly more than you would ever want to know, without actually experiencing it. Just listening to me telling you and explaining to you how exactly coaching works and how it doesn't. Thank you so much for following along for so long already. I really appreciate it. I wanted to get the basics down for you so that way you kind of understand what I do on an everyday basis. And I'm really thankful that I've been able to use this platform to explain that to you. I am always posting on Instagram and Facebook and on my email list. And this is something that is so new. I mean, podcasting has been around for what, 2 decades now. And I'm just now getting into it. I didn't believe in it before. I'm like, oh, podcast, that's like an NPR kind of thing. No, thank you. And then over the years, everybody's like, wow, you have such a podcaster kind of voice, or you're really calm. You really put me at ease. And I'm just like, all right, universe, I hear you. I hear you. So I'm so thankful that I get to use my voice in this way because I am not one of those TikTokers for nothing. I tried that and yeah, that tech savvy stuff, not for me. But this is so classy and you can listen to it while you're cleaning, you can listen to it while you're driving, anything. So you're welcome. All right. So I hope you guys are having a very wonderful week. I would like to know if you tried the Wheel of Balance last week. Let me know. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook and just tag me and just say, hey, Yovi, I really got out of this from the Wheel of Balance. I was able to do this. I was able to realize that. Tell me, let's build that dialogue. And last week, we discussed this Wheel of Balance and what it is. So if you haven't listened to that episode, I encourage you to go over there. It's the last episode before this one. So go listen to that one, share it, because that one has a free download where you can practice this Wheel of Life and ask yourself a little bit of a coaching question and reflect a little bit deeper as to what might be necessary in your life, what might be out of balance, what might need more of your attention versus masking it with excessive scrolling or excessive other types of behavior that is not serving you anymore. Refocus on something that really does need your attention. Okay. So, yeah, like I was saying last week, what we talked about was behavior change and how to balance when you don't know what needs to be balanced in your life or what needs your attention, and spirituality and what it really means within the coaching world. So, what was your biggest takeaway if you did listen to that episode? I want to know. And again, how many of you did the handout? I'm so excited to kind of talk about that and see what you got out of it. This week, we are going to talk about scopes of practice within coaching, how a coach would know to refer a client out to a licensed professional, and what signs a coach may encounter when it's time to fire a client. Yeah, you heard me. When is it time to give a client the boot? And that is so fitting because this is the last episode in this series. So we're going to give this series a boot after today. I also want to say that if you would like to, go into my newsletter, getting more information about my promotions or my groups or my coaching program, go to my website, YovannaChase.com, scroll all the way down, and you can enter to my email list there. Also, you can see what other things that I do, how I help the military community, whether that's spouses, that's veterans, or active duty. If you are interested in scheduling a one on one call with me, I am a holistic fat loss coach. So go ahead and find me on Instagram. And right in my bio, you can schedule a one on one 15-minute call with me there. I'm very stoked about that because, as I mentioned in episode 2, a coach who also has coaches thrives and gives their clients the best of themselves. And that is exactly what's happening. So I'm very stoked for my clients currently and future clients. All right, so the first topic that we're going to talk about today is scope of practice. Now, if you are relatively familiar with the medical field, you know that there is a scope of practice for each and every mental health or even clinical health orientation. That is the norm, right? If you are a doctor, you have your own scope of practice. If you are a therapist, you have your own scope of practice. A social worker, you have your own scope of practice. For coaches, we also have our own scope of practice. And for many, the basics are the same. When it comes to coaching, there is a very, very nice fine line where we honor and protect our boundaries because coaching can sometimes act or seem like friendship, and that's not the case. Because we do build such a good rapport and trust with our clients, it can sometimes feel like that. But there's that fine line where we have to honor that scope of practice. And we do it so well. Oh my gosh, props to all the coaches. Woo! We do it so well. As I was saying, I am studying for the National Board Health and Wellness exam. So I am reading the book Wellness Coaching for Lasting Lifestyle Change by Arlesky. And he states in the book, when coaches stick to coaching and don't stray beyond their scope of practice, working with clients with medical conditions is not a problem. Sometimes coaches get the wrong idea and we believe it's not that it comes out, but we believe in our hearts that, oh, we can't help this person because they have a condition that I just don't have any experience with, or they have a mental illness that I just can't overpass and therefore I can't help that person. Or even the client will say, oh, well, I'm already seeing a therapist, so I don't need coaching. And I want to clarify that there's a time and place for everything. And if you believe that your condition far outweighs your potential to achieve goals for yourself, then sure, stay with what you're doing. Don't worry about it, right? But the professionals are saying that so long as you do have certification in the area where you have nationally recognized credentials and you have that expert knowledge, then it's okay so long as you are not diagnosing and you stay within the scope of coaching. So, for those coaches who do believe that if that person has a condition that you are not familiar with, don't go there. Don't go to the route of that condition. But if they are working with you for a certain achievement that they want to have, then continue coaching with them. So long as you clarify within your scope of practice that you are not a doctor, so you cannot have that experience come up. That if they have a question about that, they need to refer to their doctor, of course, right? Are you following? So, for example, for me, when I started out, I was a registered behavioral technician. And so I had experience in therapies, in behavioral therapies. It wasn't I stayed within my scope of what I knew and what I had experience in. Great. And before I started a client coaching program, I was working with parents and moms, especially with postpartum anxiety. And so we were working on specifics on behavior, what happens before the big blowout of a child, what were they doing, what were they experiencing in that moment, what were the kids doing. So all of that is tailored to behavioral therapy as well as coaching. So before we started, that agreement was already laid, that foundation was laid. And so everyone was on the same page. They knew I was coaching them so that way they could manage their anxiety. But we had to do the steps first. We had to find the triggers, right? What we worked on was just that. It was working within both scopes because I was fresh as behavioral therapy, you know, and I was a coach as well. So we worked on that together. That was the pitch that I was giving. That was my program at that time. And now it has evolved, right? I continue to keep that experience, but no longer practicing that in that scope, right? So now it has evolved and I still have that experience, just not the credentials anymore. So therefore, I need to be very careful with that and saying that, hey, I am not a behavioral therapist anymore. Now I am a coach with experience. So we might not even touch on that. If that makes any sense, please let me know. Let's say I didn't have any type of behavioral experience, then I could not help those parents with behavioral uh, outcomes, right? And where would that even come from? I wouldn't be able to just say, "Oh, I googled that." No, I have to have credentialing. Has to come from an actual certification, credible source. So that is the overall explanation that yes, if you have that credentialing and you can say it in the beginning, that is another step, explaining and laying out that foundation. That's scope of practice. Now, when I did mention in before talking about this that the basics are pretty much the same for many clinical professions. And so what I want to do is kind of itemize those for you. So, like, let's say corporate insurance companies have health coaches and mental health professionals as well as behavioral professionals and doctors and nurses. Insurance companies have all of that. They will have their own scope of practice. They will have their own policies and ethics and all of that, but they do have those basics policies, uh, ethics, follow evidence based guidelines, providing proper evidence of policy statements, HIPAA and PPI information, and adherences, conflicts of interest, etc. All of those are within the scope of practice. Those are basics. Okay, that's also within the contract, all of that. Explanation of like what the program is, though, that is the thing that's different within corporations like insurance companies or medical clinics or hospitals or private practices, specialty practices, clinics. And then you have the private one on one coaches or group programs, retreat, things like that. All of these have those basics, but what they do have is something different within their scope of practice, which is the profession, which is the credentials, the policies of their organization. Scope of practice has a lot included, isn't it? Doesn't it? A coach must continue to use coaching skills and to make sure not to diagnose, which is one thing that I mentioned before. Unless you are a doctor, professional, licensed board, all the way up there, who has also had their certification in coaching. That is their scope of practice. So they have to make sure to tell their patients ahead of time that, hey, I also have experience in coaching. And so if we're not getting anywhere with me telling you what to do, or you doing what I'm telling you to do, then I'm going to take a different method. I'm going to take a different approach, and I'll be asking you some questions, helping you kind of to understand some motivation, self motivation, things like that. And that is completely fine. It's actually beneficial for nurses and doctors and uh, therapists and all of them to learn motivational interviewing and appreciative inquiry and things of that coaching scope, just because it is more it gives that patient more autonomy, and it helps them realize maybe they are making some mistakes in their lifestyle that they could change. So taking that quick approach is pretty beneficial. And actually, where I work, I also work with a PhD professor, and she was asking us coaches if we would do like a small mock interview with her so she can give an example to her students for the college, because they are learning how to be OTs and, occupational therapists and um, optometrists and different professionals, and she wants to make sure to teach them the coach approach. That way they could at least use that in their skill base when they graduate, and they could find, they can help their patients gain more out of their interaction with her students, which is so amazing. I absolutely love that. And it actually sets them up for success. What we want to do in the beginning of setting up a program, like let's say a client comes to you as a coach and says, hey, I want to coach with you. You go through the interviewing process with each other, and you're at the point where the client says, yes, I want to join. Where do I sign? In that agreement, in the contract, it has to state in there that the coach has already asked the client if they have any underlying conditions. So let's say that the client says, yes, I have high blood pressure. Okay, great. So are you speaking with a doctor? Are you actively working on a medical plan for that to lower your blood pressure? We have to make sure of that. This way, the client doesn't assume that the coach is going to help with that, because the coach is technically not clinical. right? Unless they're working with a doctor and that's their scope. If they have a program that specifically says, "Yes, I'm going to help you with your heart disease and your high blood pressure," cool. Awesome. So yes, they know that that is within the contract and that is their scope of practice. Cool. But let's say the coach is not affiliated with any type of heart disease or high blood pressure, anything like that. It has to be stated in the contract that the client understands that, is working with their doctor, or will work with their doctor within the time that the coach and the client are working together. And the coach has to say, I am not a doctor, I am not a heart cardiologist, I am not, so they have to specify that. And let's say that the coach is within the scope of practice of a coach. To ensure a coach is allowing their clients to make their own decisions, we want to make sure not to insinuate what a client should do. So we don't want to we don't want to ask a question that sounds a little condescending that'll gear the client to a specific question and a specific answer. That is not within the scope of a coach. The scope of a coach is to help the person build autonomy, not to gear them in in a way that's not going to build up their success, right? Because we don't know that person. This is I will always say this. The coaching is the client's journey, not the coach's journey. And so when the if the coach is gearing that person in a direction where that coach wants them to go, then there's no coaching there. That's manipulation. We don't do that. And we don't know where that could lead either. So we don't want to do that. That is the scope of practice. I hope you were able to follow along. I kind of jumped a little bit all over the place there. But moving forward, let's say the coach is awesome at being a coach, but notices that the client is not making progress due to consistent check ins for about 8 weeks, and client is still stuck in the same story, the same belief, and hasn't moved forward in his or her steps. This would be reason to recommend intervention or professional care just because believing in the same story has them in a hamster wheel. The tools and the techniques that the coach has tried for 8 weeks has not worked with the person. The person is still just trapped in that emotion, still trapped in that experience, and it's not their fault, right? That could lead into some trauma there. And so the coach using their intuition and their presence within relationship, they can use that sense and that intuition to say things like, you know, I'm really noticing some trapped stuckness here. And yes, we make up words. I'm really noticing some stuck trapness here, and I'm curious if you've noticed that. And then we can go on from there, or something along the lines of, we've tried this for about 2 weeks now. How are you feeling? What is something that you've learned from this experience? And if they really haven't learned anything, there's something there that is not exactly behavioral, it's more mental, and therefore they will need to be recommended out. And like I said in episode 2, if that does happen, if they do have to be recommended out, then that doesn't necessarily mean that the coaching program has ended, that relationship has ended. It just means that possible other intervention will help. So keeping that mental aspect from them achieving their ultimate goal can be cohesive. It could be parallel, and that's okay. And again, if you are board certified, you can work with psychologists, therapists, social workers, counselors as well. So, keeping those lines of communication open is a plus, and it's actually very beneficial for the client. And maybe that would be what they need, right? Maybe they didn't know that that was an option for them. In some cases, yes, it would mean that coaching would have to end, and that would lead us to the last section of what we're talking about today. But that would be an extreme case. Okay. So I want to I want to share with you an experience that I had when I first started coaching. I had to do a whole bunch of like cold calls, right? So I called this person who was really interested in coaching, and she was like all gung ho, like I'm going to sign up with you and all of that. But again, that first initial coaching call is an interview for both the client and the coach to see if they're the right fit. It's not exactly just like, hey, I'm going to call you and now you're my client. No, no, no. This is a testy feely kind of call, right? So I call this lady and she's like, oh my God, yes, I've been wanting to coach for so long now. And she just hit the ground running and started talking. I kind of had to stop her. I'm really good at that. And like, what? Hold on. Let me explain to you the what this is. This call is only about 15 minutes. This isn't going to go any further than that. And I'm going to explain to you what the program is, along with you explaining to me what it is that you would like to get out of coaching and to begin with, and to see if we're the right fit. Because we may or may not be, right? So after asking her questions, she explains to me that she had seen a therapist before and it all went very great. Like there's people that say, I graduated therapy, and that's a huge accomplishment. Like, yes, that is wonderful. So I'm over here praising the girl. I'm like, yeah, you go, girl. And then she starts, and then I ask her, like, what is the biggest obstacle for you for achieving your goal? And she's like, well, I had to put in a restraining order for my ex, and I really haven't been able to lose the weight since then. And we just moved, and I have to do all of these little things. I'm like, okay, well, let me respectfully stop you right there. What was your last encounter like with your therapist? Was this something that, was a good end? Or was this, something different? Like, explain that to me a little bit more with genuine curiosity, of course, right? And she told me that really what happened was that she had to establish a new therapist whenever she settled in. So that tells me that there is some unfinished mental blocks there that may need to be worked on before she gets, coaching and achieving her goals. And possibly even the therapy may even just help her lose the weight because of the stress that she will, lose while working with the therapist. So I had to respectfully decline our services together. And I asked her if whenever she feels that she has accomplished that and feels more secure in her, situation, that maybe she could call me back. That's completely fine. And then we can go from there. But it would be a shame to just say, yes, I will take you as my client, and then have to refer her anyway. So getting her to have realized, like, wait, you were given a step from your last therapist to settle in here and establish your life here and then find a new one. That is a step. And if you're not going to follow that, what makes me think as the coach that you're going to follow what we agree on together, right? So those are those little key notes that we're looking for as coaches. We're very good listeners. We're very good hint takers, and curiosity takes the wheel kind of thing. So be aware of that as well when you are looking for a coach, or when you are looking for a client, even if you are a coach listening. And when you give the client the boot, let's talk about that. Firing a client is nothing new, right? If you already have an established client and the relationship, you are trying 300% and they are trying 100%, or let's say you're trying 150% and they're trying only 50% to make an even 200. Like that just doesn't make sense. The coach shouldn't be trying more than the client. The client hired you because you have the tools, right? You are not a magical worker. You guys work together. So if they're not working with you as the coach, then there is something that needs to be addressed. And if the coach is not addressing that, then the coach needs to be a little bit more grounded and do a little bit more evaluating and look within. Yeah, it's a lot of fun stuff in coaching. That's why it never gets boring and it's awesome and anybody can do it. Coaches have a heightened awareness on either how to read their client's behavior or understand their emotional cues. Pairing that with our innate intuition, we can sense when our people are not fully in the session, when they're following the motions and the routine of the session, or even if the coach isn't coaching within scope of practice. So let's say that the coach has noticed that this has happened. The client is only working 50% and the coach is working 150. The coach should bring this up to the client. And if they have brought this up to the client, then chances are they have tried to re engage the client as well with different tools so that the client could jump back into a self motivating state. But there are some things that are just out of our control as coaches, and we must let it be what it is. After the coach tries very hard to re engage the person and even blatantly tells the person what they feel is going on, and if the person can clarify whether that is true or not, then if it is and they work on it and it, somehow shifts, that's great. That is ultimate. But let's say for some reason it doesn't shift and things just go downhill from there. And these are signs that the relationship must be terminated. That client has to be fired. And when I say fired, I mean like if you have ever been a patient at a doctor's office and haven't paid your doctor insurance bills or anything like that, the doctor has the right to terminate you as their patient in that clinic. And I have witnessed this working in medical offices. And it's kind of funny, but it's kind of not. Because you think about a hiring and a job when you think about termination, but then you put it in the scope of clinical aspect and a patient, you're actually firing a patient. It's just, it's different. It's kind of funny, but it's not at the same time. So, ha ha ha, take it all out, laugh it out, and then bring it back to seriousness because it can be pretty serious sometimes. Okay, so if you are a coach and you see these signs, either the coach or the client, disengages without any type of communication. Like they just don't come to sessions anymore. The coach reaches out, they don't answer back, either email, phone, or text, or through their platform. Then that's the reason to terminate, right? They have disengaged. That's it. A client blatantly stops their behavioral lifestyle changes. So they just say, F this. And they're like, this is too much work for me. I didn't think it was going to be this much. So I'm just not going to do it. Even though the coach has tried as much as he or she could. And this person just does not want to make the effort for themselves. Again, they probably had the expectation that the coach was all magical wizard and can grant wishes with their magic wand analogy, and that wish was not fulfilled, or the genie lamp wasn't rubbed right. I don't know. Anyway, um, client becomes unsafe to themselves or the coach. So this is more for face-to-face coaching experiences, and those still occur. Client uses threats or inappropriate behavior or language with a coach. That could also be in person or virtually. Those are grounds for termination. Client does something unlawful. This could be something that is not even pertaining to their coaching agreement or coaching relationship, and they just happen to just do something illegal, that and the coach finds out about it. That's something that the coach can say, I'm not comfortable with this. This is not ethical, not moral. I'm good. Bye. And then let's just say that the client just stops paying altogether, but continues to go to sessions. The coach has said, "Hey, you've been late a few times, or you just haven't paid anymore." The coach can then say, "Okay, either we're going to pause services for now until you're able to pay, or now the coach has the right to terminate you. The coach has a life, and that coach is working for that reason." So these are reasons, and I may be missing some, but for now, this is all I could think about and do research about. These are also very extreme cases, and in many circumstances, they are avoidable with the right rapport and trust building. And like I said, coaches are really good at building rapport and trust. So these things very, very rarely happen. No coach wants to fire their client, but sometimes a coach has to do what a coach has to do. Oh man, this series, what coaching is and what it isn't. I really hope that you have truly enjoyed it. If you too are taking the board exam for health and wellness coaches, I will be sending you all the best vibes, all of them your way. And please wish me good luck and send your vibes my way too. This will be my second attempt. I would like you, even if you are or not taking the exam, whoever's listening, hold on to your big why. It's your best self motivator. That's all I can say when it comes to trying to achieve what you want to, is that your big why, hold on to that and remember it every single day. Remind yourself about it every single day. That will take you from where you are now to where you want to be, if that's the only thing that you take from this series. And again, thank you for listening. I want to share with you what's to come. So, interviews with military spouses, with entrepreneurs, with active duty parents, with children. I'm so excited to interview the children, with veterans and military supporters from all around the world, that they have resources for you and our military community. So that's really important. I'll drop some 5 to 10 minute self reflections for you to ponder on, and these are just like little things that come to my head. Sometimes they could be funny, they could be ridiculous, they could be stupid, they could just be a waste of your time, but I'm still going to put them on here just because they were my thoughts at one point and I recorded them, and then I'll just put them on as like bonus little clips for you. They might actually inspire you. Who knows? Um I'll also add in here a sleep exercise that really helps my kids fall asleep at night. And it really helps them to not only just fall asleep, but just overall be a lot calmer and centered. And I think that the kids these days, they kind of need that. I kind of have to stay true to what I started off with if I'm going to tell you to stick to your why. And I became a coach so I could be here home with my kids and still fulfill a passion of mine and help other women and parents. So I want to be able to help you with your kiddos too. I'll also, explore my culture a little bit more and add in some bilingual interviews. Share, listen, review this podcast, and rate it. So thank you. I love you all. Thank you so much. I'm so excited for accomplishing this. Have a wonderful, wonderful week and take one little nugget from this and take it to the rest of the week. Remember, remind yourself over and over and over again. All right, I'll let you go. Bye. Yo, you did it. You put yourself first and you let healthy happen. Congratulations on choosing that for yourself. Take this energy now that you're feeling onto the entire week. And put down in the comments how you feel after the week is done. I do have 2 invitations for you. The first one is to share this podcast with someone that you feel might need it. And second, head over to my website, YovannaChase.com, and sign up for a free one-on-one virtual experience where you and I navigate together where you are and where you would like to be within the next 3 to 6 months. Let's build a plan and let's get this happening. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to be well-rounded, a whole life experience. So thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next week.